Been a week since Nolan Wells' body was found on Horn Island. As the country sits and waits for the investigations to conclude, many questions are still left to be answered.
3 judges, 3 completely different roles. Online, they have collapsed into one sinister figure. 1, a Mississippi Chancery judge, Ashlee Cole, who made an introduction that led to a podcast interview, per TMZ. 2, a judge who received a threat over this case and published it herself. 3, whichever judge eventually oversees the grand jury that reads the sealed autopsy. Different people, different courts, different powers, and not one of them has been accused of anything. This video separates them, because a story built by merging 3 people is not a story about any of them. The first account begins on the 4th of July, with an 18-year-old named Nolan Wells and a boat trip to Horn Island, Mississippi. By the 6th, his body had been recovered. That's the timeline from CNN and Lux. 2 days between a holiday outing and a recovery. State Marine data, which CBS News obtained, puts the boat clear of the island at about 4:30 p.m. Before that, the last independently verified sighting of Nolan fell between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon. That figure sits in a volunteer search group's report obtained by TMZ, not in any official finding. We should be careful with that source. The United Cajun Navy is a volunteer search and disaster response group. Their report is a reconstruction, not a legal finding. But it's the only document we have that pins down the sighting window. That hour and 4 minutes is the last stretch when anyone can independently place Nolan Wells. After 4:27, the verified sightings stop. Do the math with us. The sighting window closes at 4:27. The boat leaves at 4:31. 4 minutes between the last time anyone independently confirms seeing Nolan Wells and the boat pulling away from Horn Island. 4 minutes. That's the gap at the heart of the first account. Nothing in the record says what happened in them. Now the sheriff's account. The county's witness count has passed 60, Ledbetter told Walks. 60. For a single boat trip, that's a wide net. That number tells us how deep this investigation goes. The FBI is assisting with digital evidence, because Horn Island sits on federal land, and the 3 friends who were on the boat, they've been interviewed, the sheriff said. They've cooperated. Here's the part that matters, and we want to be very clear about it. The death itself has produced no defendant. That's according to CNN, NPR, and NOLA.com. Both agencies still have this one running. 3 friends, interviewed, not charged, not named as suspects, witnesses. They say the threats have not stopped since this went national, per WWL and the GRIO. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist letter. Federal agents have taken up the threats sent to the young men from that day, per Live Now from Fox. So pause with us on that. The people who were there, who have not been charged with anything, are receiving death threats. The FBI is investigating those threats. The cease and desist letter, that's a legal demand to stop. It is not an admission. It is not evidence of wrongdoing. It is a paper trail that says, you've been warned. It is a young man's attorney saying, leave my client alone. Officials asked publicly, via Newsweek, that nobody decide this ahead of the work. A circulating lab report turned out to be counterfeit, and the state said so publicly, per WLBT. Fake. Someone made it up. So we have 2 things happening at once. The official investigation is moving methodically. 60 witnesses, digital evidence, federal involvement. And the public conversation is moving in a completely different direction, fueled by documents that officials say are fake. The first account, the account of the day as told through GPS data, a sighting window, and a sheriff's interviews, leaves a 4-minute gap in the middle of it. 4 minutes between the last verified sighting and the boat leaving. Nobody has filled that gap in the first account. The second account doesn't try to fill it. The second account doesn't even mention it. The second account is the one you've already met. It's why we started this video with 3 judges, because the second account turned 3 judges into 1. Here is the first judge, Ashlee Cole. According to TMZ, host Brandon Tatum says he had no prior relationship with Warren Hudson's family before they reached him through Cole. That's the introduction. That's what placed her in this story. She sits on a Mississippi Chancery court, and the court structure is specific. Chancery handles estates, wills, guardianship, and property. not criminal prosecutions. So the judge the internet is shouting about has no criminal authority over anything connected to Nolan Wells. A Chancery judge can sign off on a will. She can appoint a guardian. She does not decide who goes before a grand jury. This is not an accusation against her. It is a description of her court. The second judge never gets a name in the reporting. According to reported coverage, a judge who received a threat connected to this case published it herself. Not through a spokesperson, not through the sheriff's office. She published it. That makes her a target, not a player. And the threats moved from online to criminal. Charges over threats now exist in 3 separate matters: a judge, a witness, local officials, per PBS NewsHour and CNN. 3 people. Charged. That is a separate line of the investigation, and it is the one with named defendants. The third judge is the one in the second account. The one your TikTok feed is really pointing at. This third judge has Ashlee Cole's name, a threatened judge's story, and none of the legal limits of either. In the second account, this judge has a phone history. In the second account, this judge inserted herself into the family's search for answers. In the second account, this judge is connected enough to matter. But the official record gives that composite judge no courtroom. A Mississippi Chancery court does not hear criminal prosecutions. The power the second account needs, the power to influence what happened on July 4th, is not a Chancery power. It never was. Now, about that phone history, the second account treats it like the key to everything. What the sheriff's office actually said is different. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said his office has interviewed more than 60 witnesses, per locks. The Bureau's data roll exists because of who owns the island. Investigators have interviewed every one of the 3 who were there. That's the official picture. Digital evidence, yes, but it sits inside an active investigation. It has not been released. It has not been explained. A phone history that nobody outside the investigation has seen cannot prove a connection to anyone. So you have 2 timelines running at once. One timeline ends in a grand jury. The other timeline ends in a comment section. The official timeline has an autopsy. What the family commission settled nothing. Undetermined. Pending investigation. Per ABC News. The state autopsy is complete, and its results have not been made public. It goes to a Jackson County grand jury with other evidence. Per ABC, NBC, and Waldman ULBT. There is no accused person in this death. State officials asked publicly, via Newsweek, that nobody reach a verdict ahead of the work. The second account doesn't want to wait. It already knows the ending. But the official record doesn't match that ending. None of this is an accusation against any judge. It is a description of the official record. It has a grand jury room and an unread autopsy report. It has 60 witnesses and a digital evidence box. It has a judge who answered a threat by publishing it. That judge, the real one, the one with no name, is the detail the second account never slows down for. Who threatened her? Why did she make it public? What did she see that the rest of us didn't? Nobody online has answered that. Because to answer it, you'd have to stop looking at one composite judge and start looking at the woman who pressed publish. Put the 2 accounts side by side, and the first collision is a clock. The United Cajun Navy's report, a volunteer organization's document, not an official finding, per TMZ, places Nolan Wells' last independently verified sighting inside a 64-minute window between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon. Departure sits at roughly 4:30 on state data obtained by CBS News. Do the subtraction. The sighting window closes at 4:27. The boat is away at 4:31. Between those 2 marks sits 4 minutes, and nothing else. The version of this case that lives online needs those 4 minutes to work. The official version doesn't fill them. It just leaves them empty. The official timeline has 3 marks: the window, the departure, and a body recovered on July 6th, per CNN and Locks. And that emptiness is where the second collision starts, with a phone. Online, the phone history is the key to everything, the thing that ties a judge to the case. Here is what the official record actually says about that phone, per the sheriff's office through Locks. More than 60 witnesses interviewed. Digital evidence in the hands of the FBI, because Horn Island sits on federal land. All 3 of the others from that trip have been questioned. That's the phone's official status. One item inside a larger evidence box, unreleased, unexplained. A phone history nobody outside the investigation has seen, cannot connect anyone to anything. It can only be claimed to. And we keep hearing that word, phone. But Sheriff Ledbetter's own interview, per Locks, folds the phone into a bigger picture. 60+ witnesses, digital evidence, federal land, 3 friends interviewed. The phone is one exhibit among many. We have seen none of them. The third collision is the threats. Charges over threats now exist in 3 separate matters: a judge, a witness, local officials, per PBS NewsHour and CNN. Now hold that number against this one, from NOLA.com, CNN and NPR. No one has been charged in connection with Nolan Wells's death. 3 charged over threats. 0 charged over the death. And the threats themselves are documented. The young men from that trip describe threats that keep arriving, per ABC News and WWL. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist letter too. The online account folds all of that into the story of what happened on July 4th. The official record keeps it separate, a crime of its own. Threats sent to the young men from that trip are being examined federally, per Live Now from Fox. The record treats them as witnesses, not suspects. They are the ones receiving the threats. The fourth collision is a document. A purported toxicology report is circulating on social media, and Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell says it is fraudulent, per WellBT. Think about what that means. The report you can actually see online is fake. The report you cannot see is real. The state autopsy, completed by July 31st per WellBT. Its results not made public, now on its way to a Jackson County grand jury. What the family commissioned came back undetermined and pending. Per ABC News and CNN, their stated concern was interference with an open file, not embarrassment. Online, the document is the proof. Officially, the proof is the document nobody can read. So now you have the 4 points of collision. 4 minutes against a whole narrative. 1 phone against 60 witnesses. 3 charges for threats, 0 for the death. 1 fake report against 2 autopsies. Every time the 2 accounts touch, the official record is smaller, slower, less certain than the version online. We keep being told the online version is the real one. The collisions say otherwise. But there is a 5th collision, and it is the one that actually matters, because it is the one the internet has never stopped to examine. It's the gap between the single judge the internet has built and the 3 separate judges who actually appear in this case, one of whom holds no criminal authority over it at all. That judge is Ashlee Cole, and she is why 3 separate judges have collapsed into one online. The record keeps them apart. Ashlee Cole sits on the Mississippi Chancery Court. By the design of Mississippi courts, a Chancery court handles estates, wills, guardianship, and property, not criminal prosecutions. Brandon Tatum told TMZ he had no prior relationship with Warren Hudson's family before they reached him through Cole. That is her entire role. An introduction. Not a ruling, not an investigation. The second judge received a threat connected to this case and published it herself, per reporting. The third judge is the one who would preside over any criminal case, if one ever exists. That judge has not even been identified, because no one has been charged. The internet built 1 judge. The record shows 3. None of them is the person investigating Nolan Wells's death. Now watch where the record puts its weight. 60+ witness interviews sit on the county record, per Dwoxox. 60. Federal ground is why the FBI is on the digital side. The other 3 from that day have each spoken to investigators. The first weight lands on a wide investigation, not a single accusation. The second weight is a time. The state's own position record, via CBS News, has the vessel away at about 4:31. That is a state record, fixed and verified. It does not tell you what happened before that, but it tells you when the boat moved. The third weight is a span. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search organization, not law enforcement, placed Nolan's last independently verified sighting between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon, per TMZ. But the record treats that document carefully. It is a volunteer group's report, not an official finding. The sheriff's office has not adopted it. Neither has the FBI. So the official record does not even confirm the window. It only notes someone else measured it. The fourth weight is 2 reports. Per 4 LBT, the state completed it and released nothing. Its results have not been made public, and they are going to a Jackson County grand jury. Per ABC News and CNN, the family's examination closed, no question at all. The record holds both side by side. It does not say which one it believes. The path forward runs through the state autopsy, the one you cannot read. Now here is where the record goes quiet. Not a single person has been charged over the death. That is CNN, NPR, NOLA.com. The file stays open at county and federal level both, per the same outlets. 3 people have been charged, but for threats aimed at a judge, a witness, and local officials, per CNN and PBS NewsHour. Not for the death. Not yet. Newsweek carried the state's plea to let the process finish first. They said the guessing itself costs the people working the file time. And Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell went further. A circulating lab document was branded fake by the state, per FULBT. That is not a soft warning. That is an official telling you a document is fake. So add it up. The record supports 60+ interviews. It supports 1 GPS time. It supports 2 autopsies, 1 undetermined and 1 sealed. It supports 3 charges for threats and 0 for the death. It supports an FBI investigation into threats against the friends and the officials working the case, per Live Now from Fox. It does not support any accusation against the 3 friends. They are not named suspects. They are not charged. They are the ones receiving the threats. And it does not support the story that a Chancery court judge controls the case. She does not. That is the shape of the official record. Wide on witnesses, narrow on conclusions. Silent on cause. 60 people talked. 1 boat moved. 2 autopsies exist. No one is charged. The silence is not an absence. It is a stack of documents waiting on a grand jury. And in that stack, 1 document stands apart. It is the 1 document both sides agreed to open together. That document is the phone. Both legal teams agreed in July to open it together, with experts on each side watching the same extraction, per ABC7 and News Nation. That agreement was not a leak. It was a procedure. The download happened, and then the record went quiet again. Nothing from that download has been made public. The phone's contents are still pending. You and I have not been told what it holds. The state autopsy is also pending, in the way that matters. It was completed by July 31st, per WellBT. Its results have not been published. They are going to a Jackson County grand jury along with other evidence, per ABC News, NBC News, and WellBT. A grand jury is a closed room. It takes its time. It does not tell the public what it hears. The only public signal will be a charge, or a decision not to charge, when that decision is filed. Here is what the public record does say. The death has no defendant attached to it. That remains true. 3 people have been charged, but for threats aimed at a judge, a witness, and local officials, per CNN and PBS NewsHour. Those charges are not about the boat. They are about what happened after the death, and they are moving on a separate track. Now the judges. 3 names for judge are floating around this case. Online, they have become 1 face, 1 target. The record does not support that. First, Ashlee Cole. She is a Mississippi Chancery Court judge. According to TMZ, Brandon Tatum says he had no prior relationship with Warren Hudson's family before they reached him through her. That is the only fact about her in the record. Her court handles estates, wills, guardianship, and property, not criminal prosecutions, per general court structure. So the judge who has drawn the loudest scrutiny has no jurisdiction over the death case. She cannot decide it. She cannot dismiss it. She is not in its chain of command. Second, a judge who received a threat connected to this case. She published that threat herself, per reported coverage. That makes her a target, not a party. Per Live Now from Fox, the Bureau is on the threats aimed at them. That investigation is open. And the third judge, the one who is supposedly steering the criminal investigation, does not appear anywhere in the record. That judge is a role the public conversation has written. The record gives that role to no one. No wrongdoing has been alleged against any of these judges. No wrongdoing has been established. So what is still pending? The phone, the autopsy, the grand jury, the FBI's threat investigation, the death investigation itself. The family paid for an answer and received an open one, per CNN and ABC News. Undetermined is a placeholder, not an ending. The state autopsy is the ending that has not been written yet. Mississippi officials asked the public not to rush, per Newsweek. The concern was mechanical. Theories online cost investigators hours. Sean Tyndall, the state's public safety commissioner, branded a circulating lab document fraudulent, per BOMBSHELL. The real document is still out of sight. And the person at the bottom of all of this is not a judge. Nolan Wells was 18. He went to Horn Island on July 4th, and his body was recovered on July 6th, per CNN and Doblox. Every subpoena, every interview, every charge, every pending decision orbits him. He is the one who cannot be interviewed by the grand jury. He is the one who cannot read the autopsy. The record has his name, his age, his dates. It does not have his story. Not yet. There is a reason 3 separate judges fuse into one so easily, and it is worth naming. A judge is a symbol before she is a person. The word carries authority, secrecy, and the sense that something is being decided somewhere you cannot see. So when 3 of them appear in one story, the mind does not file them separately. It files them as the judges, and from there, it is one short step to the judges are involved. The fix is boring and it works. Ask which court. Chancery handles estates and property. Circuit handles crime. A grand jury sits under a criminal court and nowhere else. 3 different rooms, 3 different powers, and none of them overlaps with the others. Ask that one question and the bundle comes apart in your hands. Here is the practical test, and it takes 10 seconds. Whenever somebody says a judge is involved in this case, ask one question back. Which court? Chancery Court in Mississippi handles estates, wills, guardianship, and property disputes. It is where a family goes to settle what a dead person owned. It has no power to charge anybody, no power to convene a grand jury, and no role in a homicide file. Circuit Court is where crime lives. That is where an indictment would be returned, and that is the room the sealed autopsy is traveling toward. Those are not 2 branches of one thing. They are separate courts with separate judges and separate authority, and a judge in one has no more power in the other than you or I do. So the bundle going viral is asking you to believe that a judge whose entire jurisdiction is wills and property is somehow steering a death investigation. Once you know what that court does, the claim cannot stand up. That is not a defense of anyone. It is a map of who can do what. That is what is pending. The phone that might explain, the autopsy that might answer, the grand jury that might decide, and the person all of this is about is the one thing the record can never give back. The case is not closed. It is waiting, and the next move belongs to a grand jury.